The world's first D-shape wet and dry vacuum. Does it make any difference? Let's find out more. This is the UWANT D700, and it has a neat few tricks up its sleeve. Before we start, a quick disclaimer, this is a sponsored video by UWANT. However, they had absolutely no input on the review. I retained complete editorial freedom. I did not share a script. Matter of fact, they're watching this review at the same time you guys are. So I do remain objective and unbiased throughout this review. Now let's talk a bit more about the UWANT D700. And I'm quite intrigued by this machine. It has three quite unique features. The first one, of course, is that D-shaped brush roll. And as you can see, it has a much larger surface area than a traditional wet and dry brush roll, and better edge cleaning. Now, the edge cleaning is both on the side as it extends well towards the end, but also on the front. So in theory, it could clean walls and baseboards. And we will see if it delivers on those claims in the cleaning tests later on in the review. The second unique thing the D700 has is its handle. We saw the same handle on the UWANT D100, which I reviewed last year on the channel. And what's unique about this handle is that it flexes. So they call it zero gravity handle. And it supposedly alleviates some of the perceived weight of the machine as you are maneuvering it. And while I was skeptical there would be any tangible benefit to that, I was surprised to see a very noticeable benefit in that it actually made the machine much easier to move around. I did not expect it to make a huge difference in the perceived weight of the machine, but it actually does. I ran multiple tests without unlocking the handle, so using it as a traditional wet and dry vacuum, and then with unlocking the handle, and I would really feel it is much lighter. Now, of course, the weight is the same either way, but it was much easier to control and to maneuver, and the perception, it felt much lighter on my hand with that free flow unlocked handle. And the third unique thing that the D700 has, which we also saw on the D100, and I've seen a very few wet and dry vacuums that have that, not a lot, is the base, the charging base. It's a push-in base, so instead of having to lift the machine to place it on the base to charge, you just roll it in, which also makes it much easier. In terms of the other specifications of the machine, it of course has lay flat capability, so it can do 180-degree lay flat. It has a slim profile of 13.5 centimeters, so it can get under furniture. Maneuvering the machine is relatively easy. The head does not swivel or pivot as much as I would have liked, and there is no self-propelled wheels. However, there is forward assisted by the rotating brush roll. The water tank is a unique 2-in-1 design. The same tank houses the dirty water tank, which is a 700 milliliter tank, and the clean water tank, which has a capacity of 650 milliliters. Now, I'm not sure if I like the design or not. They argue that you would make one trip to refill and empty the water tank, which I could see the benefit of, but I'm not sure if I prefer a one tank system versus two separate ones. I might be somewhat inclined towards the two separate tanks, but this is not a major issue. The waste tank also has a deodorizing stick in it, so it helps reduce odors. And I'm happy to see that there is a solid filter that helps separate the solid debris from the liquids, so you can dump the solids in your waste basket and pour the liquids out in your toilet or sink. It also does hot water cleaning of the brush roll, though in theory this is not really hot water cleaning, but rather there's a hot plate at the base of the station which heats up as the roller brush rotates against that hot metal plate. There's also hot air blowing in the cleaning process. I've also argued about the effectiveness of that method of cleaning the brush roll, because pushing hot air or a hot metal plate against a roller brush that is constantly being fed with room temperature water is not the same as cleaning with hot water. But we will see how effective or not the cleaning session is in the cleaning tests later on. They do claim that the hot water cleaning is at 100 degrees Celsius. The good thing is I used my thermal camera to check the temperature of that hot plate. And indeed, it was a bit over 90 degrees Celsius, so very close to that claim. And the machine does hot air drying of the brush roll at 75 degrees Celsius. I also verified with the thermal camera and it was actually 75 degrees Celsius, which is nice to see that the claims are actually met. But not only is there hot air that is blowing, but they also make use of that hot plate at the base. So the brush roll is rotating against that hot plate, which is helping to dry it. And that results in a much quieter drying session because they're using a little bit of hot air, but also that hot plate. And I tested how loud it is, and it was around 40 decibels, which was impressively low and amongst the lowest that I've seen. If you have the machine in a separate room, you're definitely not going to hear it. And even if you have it in the same room, but you have a window open, you're barely gonna hear the drying session, which is really nice. and that drying session takes about 70 minutes. The brush motor itself is also unique in that first it can move or rotate at 45 degrees and can be rinsed. So it is IPX6 rated, which is also very rare to find a rinsable waterproof brush motor. Speaking of rinsable, another nice thing is that the base itself is also removable and washable, which makes maintenance and cleaning easier. The machine itself has 3 cleaning modes: Smart, which is the automatic mode that automatically adjusts the suction power based on how much dirt it detects. There's Turbo or maximum mode, and there's also suction mode. And another nice thing here is that it is actually true suction. So a lot of the machines that have suction mode do still dispense a little bit of water. This one does not, so it's pure suction. So in case you want to use this on carpets, while I wouldn't really recommend it, and that's not what it's intended for, in theory you can, as there will be no water dispensed on the brush roll. It also has a tangle-free 100-tooth comb roll, and we'll see how effective it is later in the tests. Runtime is rated at 45 minutes. It also does the electrolysis of water, so you're cleaning with electrolyzed water. Now, I've shared this concern multiple times on the channel. I am not sure of the tangible benefits of electrolyzed water in these contexts. I know electrolyzed water cleans better and disinfects, but in those commercial applications that we're seeing in wet and dry vacuums, I'm not sure if the electrolysis is effective enough to yield any tangible benefits. Now, I cannot discount it, nor can I argue for it. I'm just stating my opinion and that I have questions. Unfortunately, I do not have access to a lab to test if the electrolyzed water is actually more effective than room temperature water, but I guess it's good that the feature is there in case it provides any tangible benefit. All that is great on paper. In practice, how does it actually perform in the cleaning tests? Well, surprisingly well. Starting off with the coffee test, where I put some coffee on the floor and then let it dry over 12 hours. As you can see from the first pass, it gets all the coffee out, which in and of itself is very typical. All wet and dry vacuums that I've tested get the coffee out from the first run. So that by itself is not impressive. It's expected. What was impressive is how close to the edge it got. Look at that. That's one of the closest I've seen any wet and dry vacuum get to the edge. That is remarkably close, and that was very impressive. And initially, looking at that de-roller brush, I thought for me to get very close to the edge, I need to hit that edge from the front, not from the side. Surprisingly, even going sideways got it very close to the edge. Then I thought to myself that the front of the machine has a very large surface area of that brush roll exposed, which means it should be able to clean baseboards or walls. So I got a pencil, and I scribbled on the wall, and look at that. From the first run, it got all of those scribbles off. And that is something I don't think I've ever seen in any wet and dry machine that is able to clean your walls or your baseboards. So that was impressive. But the impressiveness doesn't end there. Next up was my dried ketchup stain. This is again a ketchup stain that I let dry over 12 hours. And if you've seen any of my earlier wet and dry reviews, you know that this is a tough stain to get out. Almost all of the wet and dry vacuums do get it out eventually, but they require over a dozen passes to eventually get it out. And this is where I was genuinely surprised how much faster the D700 got that stain out. After only 3 or 4 passes, most of that stain was gone, whereas in most, if not all other wet and dry vacuums, it requires many more passes to start getting that stain out. And this is where that larger surface area of that brush roll, which again is the first I see on any wet and dry vacuum, really shines, and effectively, it actually cleans better. That is something I did not expect, but I was happy to see. And then the dry ketchup stain, as expected from the first pass, it got everything out, followed by milk and cereal. Again, from the first pass, it got everything out. This is what the brush roll looked like after those cleaning tests. There's a bit of discoloration from the red ketchup. And this is what the dirty water tank looked like. And as you can see, I'm happy to see that there's a solid debris filter over here. It's a bit on the smaller side, but it did catch most of the solids and prevented them from falling into the water. So then I put the machine back on the cleaning base. And here you see putting it back on the station is as easy as literally driving the machine into the base and just locking the handle around the cleaning cycle. And this is what the brush roll looked like after the cleaning cycle. It did a fairly good job at cleaning the brush roll, and this is all the water that was extracted from that brush roll during that cleaning session. Last test is the anti-hair tangle test, and I put a lot of hair on the floor. This was a stress test, and I don't think you're going to encounter this much hair, but I was curious to see if any hair is going to get tangled, and to my pleasant surprise, absolutely no hair got tangled on that large brush roll. It was 100% tangle free, and if you open the dirty water tank, you'll see all the hair was caught in that solid debris filter. So here are my thoughts on the UWANT D700. It's not a perfect machine. There's a few things I wish it would have had. I talked about the self-propelled wheels, which would have been nice. I wish the cleaning had a larger swivel angle. And thirdly, if it had an auto solution dispensing tank, which we see on some of the models. But these are more of a wish list. At its core, the machine claims to clean better, and it 100% delivers at that. The unique D shape of that roller brush, alongside the larger surface area that's in contact with the floor, actually cleans your floors better and faster. In addition to the added benefit of being able to clean your sideboards or walls, which is not something you see on any other wet and dry vacuum. And then the small other additions like the slide-in base and the handle that unlocks were really nice and made the machine even better and even easier to use. And the drying session, although a bit long, is fairly inaudible, which is again something I do appreciate, especially that my wet and dry vacuums are not always in a separate room. So despite it not being a perfect machine, it's hard to argue against it, as it delivers quite well on what it promises, which is a great and unique cleaning performance. So if you're in the market for a wet and dry vacuum, I definitely recommend you take a look at the UWANT D700. I will put links in the description. These may be affiliate links, so if you do decide to purchase the machine, I would appreciate if you would go through these links. I may earn a small commission at absolutely no extra cost to you, but this will greatly help support the channel. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, as this encourages me to continue producing content. Until next time, cheers.